Hey guys, today we'll be taking a look at the 538 forecast for the 2020 presidential election. We currently only have 3 weeks and 1 day until the election, so I like to take a look at this every single Monday before the election because the 538 forecast, it is the most accurate out of the 4 main forecasts. It got the entire 2012 map 100% correct, which is why it became so famous. So 538, we're going to be taking a look at their forecast today. So first I'm going to fill in their forecasted map. So basically Joe Biden's solid states, first starting off with all of the West Coast, all solid for Joe Biden, as well as the state of Hawaii. The state of Illinois is also solid, as well as the 1st District of Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, the state of Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, as well as the District of Columbia, many of the northeastern states up here. For President Trump, we have Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, the Nebraska at-large 1st and 3rd District vote, as well as the states of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia, giving President Trump just 77 electoral votes to Joe Biden with 183. And now for the likely states for the former vice president, we have the states of Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, as well as Minnesota, Michigan, the state of New Hampshire, as well as the Maine at-large vote, and the state of Virginia are all likely states for the former vice president, putting him up all the way at 248 electoral votes. For President Trump, we have the states of Montana, Alaska, Kansas, Missouri, Mississippi, and Indiana, giving him 116 electoral votes. And the lean states for Joe Biden are the states of Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, as well as Florida, 29 electoral votes, putting him all the way up at 318 electoral votes. For President Trump, we have the state of Texas and South Carolina, which is pretty surprising. South Carolina has gotten much closer than it was just a week ago, as well as the state of Texas, which is now polling within only a tilt margin for the president. And then we have these 4 final states. These states, I think, are going to be the closest states in the entire election: Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, and Georgia. And Joe Biden and Donald Trump will each take 2 each on the 538 forecast. Ohio will go to Joe Biden, and the state of Iowa will go to President Trump. And then the state of North Carolina will go to Joe Biden, and then Georgia will go to President Trump. What this means is that the Rust Belt has basically been flipped. Joe Biden has rebuilt the blue wall that Barack Obama was able to carry both times in both 2008 and 2012, and Clinton lost these states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio that were in the Rust Belt. These 4 Midwestern states have been flipped back into the Joe Biden column. Biden will also flip North Carolina for the Democratic Party for the first time since 2008. Georgia will remain a Republican state, while Florida will be flipped from 2016 as well, and then Arizona will be flipped for the first time since 1996. So this gives Joe Biden 351 electoral votes, and now we have our 2 districts right here. The 2nd district of Nebraska will be a lean district for Joe Biden, while the 2nd district of Maine will be a tilt district for President Trump. I think that as of right now, the 2nd district may actually go to President Trump. I've never given this district to the current president, but as of right now, I do think that Trump is going to win the 2nd district of Maine at this time, however, by a much smaller margin than what he saw. He saw an over 10% margin over Hillary Clinton in 2016. Definitely not going to be that large of a margin for President Trump this time around in 2020. So this is the 538 forecasted map: 352 for Joe Biden, and then 186 for Donald Trump. And we'll come back to this a little bit later. But taking a look at the 538 forecast, as you can see, Joe Biden is currently favored to win the election. And as you can see, he has an 86% chance of winning the 2020 presidential election. Donald Trump just a 13% chance. As you can see, this is the best case scenario for President Trump, just 344 electoral votes. The best case for Joe Biden, 489 electoral votes. I mean, he would win states like Montana, South Dakota, the state of Kansas. He would win Louisiana and Arkansas. So this is probably never going to happen, but just so many more Biden winning scenarios. There's also 1% of there being a 269 tie. That would, of course, be the nightmare scenario in the Electoral College, where if this were to occur, Donald Trump would win the election because then the House of Representatives would vote and each state would get 1 vote. And if you were to take a look at this map, there are more Republican states in terms of the representatives. So if you were to have states where if each state were to vote just for one party, the Republican Party does have more states, which is why the Electoral College is so beneficial to the GOP. So 13% chance of a Trump victory, 86 for Joe Biden. This is, I believe, Joe Biden's peak ever in terms of chances of victory. This is the same chart, just flipped backwards. As you can see, these are all of the Trump losing scenarios and the Biden winning scenarios. So same thing here. As you can see, many more Biden winning scenarios than any of these Trump winning scenarios. So this is how they have graphed it after doing 40,000 simulations for the 2020 election. And this is the winding path to victory. So 530 does not actually have an actual map. So basically, I just took this snake graph and I used the margin that they predicted for each state and just put it on this map. So that's how you get 352 for Joe Biden and then 186 for President Trump. You see that this line right here, this is, I think, a really good way to show the election, is that having this tipping point line. So Pennsylvania would be the tipping point state. This would be the state that gets Joe Biden over 270 electoral votes. So let's take a look at some of these closer states. I want to take a look at Ohio, which Biden is currently favored to win, a state that Barack Obama carried both times but voted for President Trump by over 8% in 2016. He has a 53% chance of winning, his largest chance here ever. The popular vote, very, very slim margin, just 0.5%. That does mean that a recount can occur. Polls here, good sign for Joe Biden. He is doing better here than he was before. Another state I want to take a look at, let's take a look at Georgia. This is the closest state in favor of President Trump right now. 54% chance of Trump winning. As you can see, very, very close here in the state of Georgia. Popular vote also very close. And Joe Biden does actually lead in the polls here if we were to take a look at the polling average for the state of Georgia. But we're not going to take a look at that right now. But Joe Biden does have a 0.9% lead in the state of Georgia according to just the polls. Iowa, I also want to take a look at this. 55% for President Trump, 45% for Joe Biden. And the numbers here have gotten so close in the state of Iowa. Popular vote also so close, only expected to win by 0.8% for the president. In the polls, I mean, they're doing very well for Joe Biden. Joe Biden leads by, I believe, 1.9% or 1% in the state of Iowa. I'm not too sure, but at least 1% in favor of the former vice president in the state of Iowa. North Carolina, also very interesting race here. Donald Trump has a 64% chance of losing the state of North Carolina, just a 36% chance of victory here in the state that he carried by 3.6% in 2016. So North Carolina, definitely very bad sign for Joe Biden, for President Trump. Joe Biden has a huge chance of winning the state at this point after the first presidential debate, and then after Trump caught COVID-19, things have not helped the current president here. Joe Biden currently expected to win this state by a margin of 2.1%. Polling shows very, very good numbers for Joe Biden. He has definitely surged here in the state of North Carolina. And then following that, another state I want to take a look at, Arizona, also very interesting. Joe Biden's 67% chance of victory here in this state that Trump won by 3% in 2016. Joe Biden doing better than ever in this state as well. Popular vote also, very, very strong victory for Joe Biden, 2.9% according to this forecast. And of course, Joe Biden doing very well in the polls here as well in the state of Arizona. And the Senate races are also doing very good for the Democratic Party. They're expected to win. Mark Kelly's favored to win the special election in the state of Arizona, and he would be replacing Martha McSally, which I think is definitely a huge possibility at this point. Florida as well, very interesting race, 72% chance that Biden flips the state from 2016. And then looking at the forecast, Joe Biden, never done better than he is right now, 73%. That was all the way back in June. The popular vote, Joe Biden also doing great here as well, winning by around 4%, a little bit less than 4%. Polling data also shows an increase for Joe Biden, just a huge increase after the first debate and Trump's diagnosis of COVID-19. Those two events have really actually helped Joe Biden in his victory on election night that he's probably going to have at this point, unless Donald Trump can really pull something very good out of his sleeve. Honestly, he definitely needs something huge for him to win the election. Texas, also want to take a look at this. 70% chance of a Trump victory, 30% for Joe Biden. Biden chances have stayed relatively the same. Honestly, it has increased a little bit for the former vice president, but really nothing too major. Popular vote, also doing pretty well for Joe Biden. Polls, Trump does lead by 7% in a recent poll. So the polls are just getting a little bit closer here in general, but we'll take a look at the polls in a couple of weeks and see how they have changed, because Joe Biden is seeing a little bit of an increase in support in the state of Texas once again, and maybe he will be able to take back the lead here in the state of Texas. South Carolina, also want to take a look at this state. Trump 84% chance of winning, but this is South Carolina. This is a state that voted for the president by 14% 4 years ago. And as you can see, the chances of a Trump victory really haven't decreased as much, but the popular vote margin has 52% to 46. That's just a 6% margin. That is horrible. You know, went from all the way from 10% in June all the way down to around 6% now. Trump does lead in every single poll, but just by 1% in a Quinnipiac poll. So this is all pretty concerning for the Trump campaign. And 3 states I haven't actually talked about are these states of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, just because they're so safe now for Joe Biden. 87% chance of Biden winning Pennsylvania, and he would win the election. So doing better than ever in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden right now doing better than he has ever had. He's doing great in the polls here. He leads by a likely margin according to the polls. Wisconsin, Joe Biden also doing better than ever. 86% chance of winning. Joe Biden, as you can see, at his all-time peak. Popular vote also doing very well. And, of course, he's doing very, very well in the polling here in the state of Wisconsin. Finally, the state of Michigan. This is the last state I want to take a look at. 91% chance that Joe Biden flips this 2016 Trump state. I mean, this is just great news for Joe Biden. I mean, he's at his all-time peak, but honestly, Michigan is pretty solid for Joe Biden this entire time. The popular vote also pretty similar numbers. Joe Biden, of course, doing much better, leads by over 8% here in the state of Michigan. And then I don't know why I keep clicking my back arrow incorrectly, but I just want to take a look at Minnesota. This was a state that was getting a little bit closer at one point in time. Donald Trump might have actually won this state in late August after the RNC. However, now Joe Biden has a 91% chance of winning this state as well, a state that has not voted for the Republican Party in over 4 or 5 decades. So definitely Joe Biden going to retain this state, a state that Hillary Clinton only won by 1.5% in 2016. So this is the winding path to victory. This is the closest thing 538 puts out to an electoral map. So this is pretty interesting to take a look at. They do some pretty high quality analysis of all of these states. I think that 538 is going to be correct mostly. I think that North Carolina will go to Joe Biden, but Ohio I'm not too sure about. Georgia I'm not too sure about either. I would think that Georgia would go to Joe Biden first and then Ohio, but honestly these states, as North Carolina, Ohio, Georgia, and Iowa, are going to all be very, very close, and a very small margin in the 2nd district of Maine as well, which is 0.7% for President Trump. And then moving on here, we have how the forecast has changed. This is the chances of victory for both Joe Biden and Donald Trump that I want to take a look at. As you can see, Joe Biden, 86% chance. This is the largest percentage chance of winning the 2020 election Joe Biden has ever had this entire election cycle. So as you can see, more numbers that are just becoming better and better for Joe Biden as time goes by. The electoral vote count for Joe Biden, 346 on average. This is a little bit less than the 352 that the map currently projects, but still 346 on average. Very, very good. This is Joe Biden's peak period ever. He's never been expected to win 346 electoral votes. The popular vote also very favorable for Joe Biden, 53.5% to Trump with 45.3% according to a 538 election. I mean, honestly, he has, I think, an over 95% chance of winning the election. I think even 99% chance if he wins the popular vote by over 8%. As you can see, as the election gets closer, there's going to be more and more polls, so the forecast will get a little bit less, less uncertain. So the forecast will become more and more accurate as we get more and more polls as election night approaches. And as you can see, Joe Biden doing better than he has ever done this entire election cycle. He has never been up at 53.5%. And the weird and not so weird possibilities, I like taking a look at this. Trump wins the popular vote, 5% of that occurring. It's not going to happen. Biden wins the popular vote, 95%. That's almost definitely going to happen. Trump wins a majority, 3 in 100. Biden wins a majority, 91%. I do think that Joe Biden is going to win 50% of the popular vote. And then Trump wins in a landslide. I mean, never going to happen. Biden wins the popular vote by 10%. Probably also not going to happen, but he has a 36% chance of that occurring, which is actually pretty good. Trump wins the popular vote but loses the electoral college. Not going to happen. He couldn't even do this last time. Biden wins the popular vote but loses the electoral college, doing what Hillary Clinton did in 2016, where she lost the electoral college but won more votes. 8% of this occurring again in 2020. 269 tie. Nobody gets to 270 electoral votes in Congress, which would mean the House decides the election. Less than 1%. Trump wins at least one state that Clinton won. 28 out of 100 chance of this occurring. Biden flipping at least one state, 95% chance. There's so many states that Joe Biden is currently expected to flip. I mean, there's states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina. I mean, you can also flip Georgia, Iowa, Arizona, Florida. So many different options for Joe Biden to flip. And then this map stays the same, less than 1%. This map stays the same as 2016, so no change. And then the election hinges on a recount. So yeah, I don't think that's going to occur. I don't think it's too possible. I mean, in states like Ohio, Georgia, Iowa, and North Carolina, maybe we might see a recount. But I mean, they're not going to be important enough that they're going to decide the election. Because if there's going to be 0.5 Pennsylvania, then that would be big. But I don't think that there's going to be a need for a recount in states like Arizona, Florida, or Pennsylvania. And so this is the new updated 538 forecast for the 2020 presidential election. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like down below. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. Leave your thoughts in the comments below along with any suggestions for videos you'd like to see from me in the future. And I will see all of you guys in the next video.